Question: how many CBC series creators and showrunners live in Orangeville? Answer: 1. And she's my guest next on Brio TV, the podcast. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Bill Brio. I've been doing these podcasts for 6 years now, 225 episodes to be exact. And this episode is a first. I'm usually conducting them, these interviews with TV stars, writers, producers, and others in the industry over Zoom, connecting to people all over Canada, the US, and occasionally other countries. This episode, however, the talent came right to my door. Her name is Robina Lord-Stafford, and she's the co-creator, along with Allan Hawco, of the CBC police drama Saint Pierre, now in its second season on CBC. Now, when I found out from Hawco that Robina lives in the same Ontario small town as I do, Orangeville, I reached out to see if we could have a conversation about the series. And my thought at first was to add her to my conversation late last year in Toronto with the stars of the series, Hawco, and French actress Josephine Joubert, Fitz and Arch on the series. Then Robina came by and we got talking all about her rather swift rise up the ranks of Canadian writer-producers. As you'll hear, she's come a long way in about 7 years and has worked for and with and been mentored by some of the top people in Canada, several of whom have been previous guests on this podcast. So this is actually part 2 of my look behind the scenes of Saint Pierre. We split Robina off into her own episode. There was just so much fun talking to her and a lot of things to talk about. So plenty of backstory and confirmation of a pet project she hopes to make someday about an ancestor who was a real-life pirate. And I don't mean a film pirate. Here she is, Robina Lord-Stafford. Talking, of course, with Robina Lord-Stafford. First of all, that's like the best name in Canadian television.
Thank you.
Like, it's just, you could be from any century. You could walk in, right? It's just such a name that sounds like it's right out of a great story or a history book.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's great for getting reservations.
So congrats on that. But we're talking about season 2 of Saint Pierre, and it's on Monday nights. Pretty good time slot right after Murdoch Mysteries.
Great time slot.
Yeah. I've seen the first episode, which just premiered, and you've got 10 new ones this season, right?
We've got 12 in total in season 2.
Wait a minute, 12?
Yes. Last year we had 10. We got a little bump.
That's fantastic. So that takes you right to hockey, is basically where it fits in, right?
Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to say.
But that's what you want. Tell me, you're the co-creator, executive producer, and I've spoke with Allan and Josephine at the CBC Winter Launch a month ago, and it was good to see them again. But just tell me how the story of how this was a co-creation. At what point did you and Allan get together on this?
Well, Allan and I actually worked together on another CBC show called Moonshine.
Right.
And where he was an actor, and we just kind of like struck up a friendship when we were there on set. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of years later, I got a message from in my Instagram box from him, and saying, "Hey, I kind of have this idea for this cop show. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, wait a second. How do I know you're the real Allan Hawco?" And he said, "We're tight leather pants," which is what we made his character wear in Moonshine. And I'm like, that's Allan. Not just the tight leather pants, but the cheekiness of it all.
That's funny.
So we just jumped on a call. He told me about this place called Saint Pierre that I will admit my ignorance. I had no idea it even existed.
Most Canadians don't.
Yeah. And then I, of course, went and did a massive rabbit hole dive and found out about its history, that it was France, and all of those really fun and interesting things about Saint Pierre and Miquelon.
Yeah.
And, he said, I have these two characters. They're two cops. They're both kind of going to be a fish out of water story. One's from St. John's, Newfoundland. One's from Paris, France. And they're like smushed together to work. And I said, well, right there, that's completely interesting to me. I grew up in England, so I watched shows like, I love Scott and Bailey and those kind of British touchstones. And so I was like, can we like lean into that a little bit more than what we traditionally see in cop shows in Canada? And he was all in. So yeah, just kind of started off with a little conversation, and then we had a small writer's room the November of 2023, 2022.
Sure. It takes a long time to get a show going.
Don't even know what year we're in right now, Bill.
Second season, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had a little writer's room, and it became really apparent by the end of the week that I was like super invested and really interested in this show. And so Allan and I just like, let's go, let's just do it, let's dive into it. And we created, a bit of a Bible, which is like saying creatively what's going to happen over the first season and where we could see future seasons going, what the arcs would be for Arch and Fitz, what kind of like stories we could tell, and CBC really loved it. So then they greenlit us, and we were able to like really then fully commit to this show.
How far in advance do you map out when you're creating? Do you go as far as like 5 years, or do you just do?
We did really 2 years, and knowing that things are going to change. Like we hadn't even cast as yet. So, when you cast people and you hear their voices, and, like here's an example, the character played by Jean-Michel Renouf, when we first imagined Renouf, he was kind of this gruff, kind of like grumpy cop who basically clocked in and clocked out, wasn't really committed to his job, just kind of doing it. And then once Jean-Michel started acting in the role, there was something so endearing about him that he brought to the character that we kind of quickly got over the Renouf being a little bit pushed back on Arch, for instance, in 102. And we saw an evolution of that character. And, we saw that through the first season. And then coming into second season, we're like, okay, we're going to lean into this even more. So even though we had like created a character arc for Renouf, that really evolved and changed because of who we cast. And so, the same thing with some of the stories, they changed as we went along, they evolved, collaborating with different writers that we brought on board, with our directors, and of course with our CBC execs. It's just kind of, it did change. I wouldn't say we made like a huge pivot, but we did evolve the show.
And Renouf is in kind of a corner as we start the second season, right? He's, Well, you don't know how much you can talk.
I don't know what you mean, but in a corner.
Well, if I've got the right character, we first of all, we meet sort of a new character who seems to be very much someone who's an antagonist this season. The lady who comes in and starts running the squad.
Yes, Prefect
right?
Diard.
Prefect,
yes, the Prefect of Saint Pierre.
Was that something you thought, season 2, we got to get a new bad guy?
I think so. Like in season 1, we had Sean Gallagher, who's clearly a big B bad guy. And then we kind of wanted, everybody, by the end of season 1, all of our characters seem to be kind of like in a kumbaya kind of, like Arch and Fitz were getting along. Yes. Renouf has evolved and is now like on board and part of the team. Yeah. Patty has always been like team player, capital T team player. And then of course our chief Marcus, who was in season 1. So we were like, well, let's add a little bit of a friction so that our police department isn't so copacetic kind of thing. And so we were like, you know what, there's a prefect actually in real life in Saint Pierre who is the hand of the president on the island and who actually oversees, part of their portfolio is overseeing law enforcement. So once we kind of like understood that role a little bit more, it just seemed natural that we would bring in a prefect and someone who's like adding a little bit of like sand into the beautiful little oyster shell that is our Saint Pierre police force.
Oyster shell on brie, or what? There must be some French.
Definitely.
There's a great dynamic, of course, between Fitz and Arch. It's interesting because right from the get-go, Fitz is a guy who is sort of kicked out of the St. John police. He does not speak French. Doesn't really seem interested in learning. And Arch is, she's very Arch at times, which is really fascinating. First of all, it must be, when you went to cast this show, how quickly did you realize that Josephine Joubert was the perfect person for this series?
Okay, this is an easy answer for me. I love Josephine Joubert. I was a big fan of Death in Paradise.
Right.
I watched all the seasons with her in it.
Wow.
And then when she left the show, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this anymore because I really loved her character Florence.
Yeah.
And then she came back in last year's series, and then I got very excited again. And that was, I guess, 2 years ago before we cast her. So I was really excited to see her. And when we created a pitch deck, which has like images of what we want our show to kind of look like, giving examples of some of the actors we would like, we actually put Josephine in that pitch deck that we then sent to the network. So she was in my heart and on my mind from day one, basically. And then when we were casting the role, we first went through Canada and we found some incredible actresses here. But because Arch's character is Parisian, we really wanted to bring the authenticity of someone who's actually got the real Parisian accent and just kind of the vibe, and so we then cast the net worldwide. And when we got in a tape from Josephine, I called Allan immediately and I was like, oh my God, you have to go in and look at the tapes right now. We've got one from Josephine Joubert. And so we looked at it and we were like, oh, wow. And then, I called our casting director, Deirdre Bowen, and said, is this for real? Do we actually have an opportunity and a chance to actually get Josephine Joubert? And she's like, well, she wouldn't have taped if not. Yeah. So then we did a chemistry read with her and Allan.
Was this on over
Zoom? It was a Zoom.
I always wonder how the heck does that work, but it does. Right?
It works. I totally agree with you, Bill. At first I was like, and I did this for the show Wildcards. We did a chemistry read between the two leads.
Amazing. Yeah.
They are, and you could feel it in Zoom. It was like popping off the screen. And the same with Allan and Josie when they were there. There was a lot of laughter. There was just the way that they were bantering, the dialogue. It was like an instant chemistry, and the fact that you could feel it over Zoom. We're like, well, what is it going to be like when they're in person?
True. Yeah.
And then they were in person, and we were just all like first day going, okay. Yeah, this is absolutely the right person for this role.
Yeah, no kidding. And I mean this in it sounds like I'm making a complaint here, but no, you can't teach French arrogance, right?
Oh my God, I'm not saying a word on that.
But here's where I'm coming from. I have a French heritage surname, but I'm not really. I grew up in Ontario. My mom was from Scotland, but I remember, but I've been in France a few times, and I just always felt so at home when I go to buy bread or something,
right?
Because it's just a different vibe, and it's really exciting to me. And it seems like, I feel at home in that kind of atmosphere. And she has that just in terms of, she's not really overly impressed with anyone until, she's going to have to show her. And that's really what you need in that character, right?
It's so funny because Josephine and Arch are actually quite different people.
Yeah.
I think Josephine has said that Arch has given her something that's given her a new kind of confidence. And Arch is a little salty. Yeah, totally. We totally write Arch that way. Yeah. And Josephine, we don't even have to give her notes on set. It's like she understands her character so well that she can play it, even with like doing a little eyebrow raise. And it's yes, that's exactly what her character needs. She's great.
She is very good. When you have this great resume in that you've worked on all these other shows. Pretty Hard Cases was also a police story.
Yeah.
Were you already thinking in terms of your next project? Are those police stories the ones that you're drawn to, or it just worked out this way?
It just kind of worked out this way. The irony of it, as I told my agent many years ago, I really don't want to be on a cop procedural, and then cut to a few years later, and I've done Hudson Rex and Pretty Hard Cases and Wildcards, and now I'm doing Saint Pierre. So
you can't avoid it.
You can't avoid it. That's what the audience wants. And to be honest, as I said, I'm a huge fan of BritBox and British shows. So I'm always watching these kind of crime dramas and trying to figure out who done it.
What did you think of Cardinal?
I loved Cardinal. Absolutely loved it. In fact, Cardinal and Mary Kills People, I reference them quite a bit because they're the two shows that really inspired me to want to work within the Canadian framework. I had been looking at going stateside because there's just, more a lot more opportunity for writers and, going to LA. And so I kind of investigated it, and then I watched those two shows and I was like, wait a second. And that's not to disrespect other Canadian shows that I've been on, but it was just there was like a grittiness that they brought that I hadn't really seen before. They weren't such a cozy mystery. There was like, oh, this woman kills people for a living to help put them out. And then she's being investigated, and it's like you're pulling for her. And it was just, I thought, oh, this is so interesting what they've set up.
Caroline Daverness?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness.
She's great.
You know, she is great, yeah. I'd like to see her do more. She's very talented. But the two on Cardinal, I went up to North Bay a couple of times and interviewed them. And my God, I've never seen anything like those two. Just in terms of the chemistry was electric, and it really made that series, elevated it, didn't it?
It really was. And I also loved, I'm a big fan of both of those actresses too, and I would love to have them on my show. But I think also with Cardinal, it got that kind of like Scandi noir vibe to it, which I also really love. Like, it freaks me out, but I still love watching it. And they got so dark in some of their series that I was like, wow, like we can go there. And that was exciting. And then the response was phenomenal to it.
You should write a scene where Billy Campbell comes up in his, he has a schooner, like a Nova Scotia built schooner, right?
This is in real life, you're saying?
Yes, in real life.
Cool.
He's a sailor, this guy. He sailed for a year, like on his own. Have him pull into the island and then just let it write itself.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. You want to be part of our writer's room?
I could give you those 4 seconds of your script.
Sometimes that's all you need. Maybe. It's a great jumping off point.
I guess. We'll be right back after this brief message. Hey, it's a brand new year. Time once again to speak with Emily Gagne at Hollywood Suite. Emily, what have you got for us this month?
Well, we've got a brand new exclusive series. This is the Canadian premiere of Elizabeth Taylor, Rebel Superstar. This is a docu-series about Elizabeth Taylor that's produced by Kim Kardashian. There's a bunch of famous faces in it, but best of all, there's just some great footage of Liz.
Wow, one of the great Hollywood screen legends. Interesting, Kim Kardashian presenting Elizabeth Taylor, one diva to another, right?
Yes, exactly. So
cool.
If you're into old Hollywood and new Hollywood, I think this show's for you. But if you're into more like old school movies, we've got some of the best movies of all time.
Some of the all-time biggest blockbusters?
Yeah, the blockbuster that started it all, Jaws. We finally have it. We also have Jaws 2 if you're into non-blockbusters.
Right.
And we have one of my favorite movies, the movie that made me fall in love with movies, E.T. We have it finally.
When that bicycle went over the moon, you went over with it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, Bill.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Well, that's a sweet film, and it's a good place to show it. Hollywood Suite coming up this month. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Bill.
Here she is again, Saint Pierre co-creator and executive producer, Robina Lord-Stafford. What is the writer's room like there? How many, do you have a room, or do you just have people contribute? Or?
We have a writer's room. We have some people that we've had since season 1, and that then they came back for season 2. They're really, really strong writers. Could I name writers?
Yes,
I would love to do that. Okay, so we've had Russ Cochran since the beginning, who has got a great Canadian resume as well. And, he is fast. He comes up with great ideas, like such an important part of our room. Angelica Mendizabal started as our coordinator, and then last year got bumped up to supervising producer. Again, her and Russ wrote 2 episodes in season 2. That are so good, so fun, they kind of make your heart pump. I was watching the cut of 2:10 that they wrote together, and I was like crying watching it because there are moments that are so heartful.
Wow.
And we had in season 2 Wendy Koulis, who is one of our co-executive producers, Kurt Mungle, who was one of our coordinators, Joseph Milando. and Seneca Aaron came on board for the season, and Motion Braithwaite came on board. I really hope I'm not forgetting anyone.
Wow, that's a great list.
We had a really good, solid list.
And of course, Perry.
Oh, JP LaRock. Oh my goodness, JP was great.
All right. Perry Chafe is also a co-creator?
Perry came on board early on with Allan because they've done a lot of work together in the past, and then Son of a Critch really picked up. So season 1, Perry was there in the writer's room for a few weeks and wrote a couple of episodes, and then he was gone to Critch.
Gotcha.
Critchland.
Right. Well, I hope Perry's leaving room to write another novel. Boy, he wrote one that is just tremendous.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
Well, let's talk a bit about your path to Saint Pierre. It just seems in the last 5 years you've been on a lot of shows, like, really fun to watch shows, and you've worked with all these amazing people. Let's go back. I guess Frankie Drake is with Christina Jennings. That's a Shaftesbury show, and you're writing with Tassie Cameron and Sherry White on Pretty Hard Cases, right?
That's right.
And Moonshine, was that Sherry as well?
Sherry Elwood.
Yeah, Sherry Elwood.
The other Canadian Sherry.
Right. Yeah. So, and I love these guys on Wild Cards.
Michael Conoves was my showrunner on Wild Cards.
Okay, yeah. No, there's some. So, writing television in Canada, it's a pretty small room in a way, right?
Yeah.
But you seem to be in every corner of it, like, very quickly.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I basically made a decision that I really wanted to write television.
Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine who is in the TV industry. He writes kids television. And I said to him, I've written this feature film and like, where do I go? Like, where do I go with it? Because I was trying to break into Canadian television and not really it's not something you get taught in school if you haven't gone to like the Canadian Film Center or the Pacific Screenwriting Program, for instance. And he said, listen, I love that you want to write a feature and that you've written features. That's great. Shows that you can write. But if you really want to have a career where you're feeding your family and paying your mortgage, you might want to look at Canadian television. And so he just kind of gave me some avenues on how to get into it. And, like doing things like joining Women in Film and Television, and being part of various associations like BIPOC TV and Film, and like kind of just growing my network and submitting to contests and to different programs in Canada and just getting my name out there. Yeah. And like I had a circuitous route kind of into the industry because there used to be a program called Working the Scene in Color, where they would pick BIPOC writers, a scene from a film, TV show, or a play, and have professional actor readers like bring it to life kind of thing. Yeah. And so mine was one of my scenes was selected for it, which was great. Wow. And it was the first time I'd heard people actually say the words I had written out loud. It was a really emotional moment. I was there with my husband and my sister, and
How long ago was that?
This was, I think, in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, we're kind of like getting teary-eyed and stuff. And then afterwards we had a Q&A, and there was lots of beautiful questions. And then my agent was there, and she reached out and said, hey, I really loved what I had to hear. She was my agent at the time. I'd love to meet. And so we sat down and we met and we talked about the industry, what my placement could be in the industry. And she's like, have you written anything? And I was like, of course, I want to be a writer. And she's like, I have to tell you, 70% of the people who I say, what have you written? They're like, well, I wrote that one scene you heard, and that's it. Right. Well, I had a feature. I had a spec script on Frankie Drake because I loved that show. Wow. And I had an original 1-hour drama that I had written. So she said, send it along. She read them, and she's like, we'd really love to represent you. And kind of almost immediately I started working. I'd already made connections through Women in Film and Television with showrunners, and I just, I put myself out there and said, hey, do you have time for coffee? And people would give advice. And, like Amy Cameron, who's part of like Tassie and Amy have Cameron Pictures. Yeah. She very generously read my script and gave me notes. Diane Bame, who was my first showrunner on Blood and Water, read one of my scripts and gave me notes. And then I sent it back to her and said, I adjusted, I made all your notes. And so she then, when her show went for another season, she called me up and said, if you're available, I would love to have you in my room, because not only are you a good writer, and I see potential that you could get even better, the fact that you took my notes, didn't push back, didn't get defensive, you just did it. She's like, that's like one of the number one things we have to do as TV writers. We're getting notes from our showrunner,
Right.
from our executives.
That's true.
And being able to take those notes with grace and figuring out, either, yes, let me make that adjustment, or what's the note behind the note? Let me make that adjustment. She's like, right there, that's telling me so much. So she actually hired me. I was getting signed by my agent and her calling me simultaneously to say, hey, I'd like you on my show. And so that was kind of the beginning of my career. And once I finished with Diane, I connected with Christina Jennings, because her and Diane have a relationship. They'd worked together many years before, and I just said, I'd love to meet with you. I've just gotten off of Diane's show, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I absolutely feel like this is my calling kind of thing. And so Christina's like, great, let's meet. And we talked, and then she, through my agent and what have you, set me up for an interview with Pete Mitchell. Have you interviewed Pete Mitchell?
Oh my God! Yes,
of course. And
Peter Mitchell reminds me of the great actor on Slow Horses.
Gary Oldman.
Yes, they could be brothers, right?
Hilarious.
In terms of
He'd love to hear that, I'm sure.
And long, but anyway, Peter is a tremendous showrunner. But I just was fascinated by. Let's talk about Christina for a minute here, because and it's like all these mentors and these folks that you've made connections with. This is your film school, and it's 10 times what you'd get at a film school.
100%.
But Christina is there, and she's got this show, Frankie Drake, for example, and Murdoch Mysteries, of course. But it's like, give me people of color, give me women. Give me, there's no ceiling for that.
Yeah.
There's no lid.
100%.
Yeah, and that must be so liberating for you, just to jump in and not have somebody give notes in another direction, right?
Definitely. And once I met with Peter, and he said, it was funny, the first time I met, I thought I was just meeting with him, and I walked in and it was like the whole Murdoch room, because I was actually interviewing for Murdoch, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay. But then they were all so lovely, and it was so conversational, and we just chatted about what we were loving on TV and all of those kind of things. But the first thing Pete said to me was, so I was told I have to meet with you. Basically, it was like I inferred, impress me now. So I was like, oh my God. And then by the end, we were all getting along so well. And, I think it was maybe me being a bit naive, but I'm like, yes, I would love to work on Murdoch. Of course, I'd be honored. But what I really want to work on is Frankie Drake, because he was running both shows at the same time.
Yeah.
And then one of the writers in the room said, well, actually, it makes more sense that because of where you live, that you are on Frankie Drake. And then he kind of mapped it out for me, and I was like, yeah, keep going. Like, you're selling me here. And then the pandemic hit. So I was supposed to go and meet with the producer to get signed off to be on the show. And then I got a call 10 minutes before I was leaving my house on that fateful day to say, the studio has shut down. Yeah. They've sent everybody home. We don't know. We'll probably be opened up in 2 weeks. It wasn't 2 weeks.
2 years.
But then in June, it was in June of the pandemic, I got a call from Pete saying, hey, did we ever hire you? And I said, not officially. And he said, can you start Monday?
Wow.
And I said, yes.
Wow.
So we actually shot throughout, before there were even vaccinations, we were shooting Frankie Drake. We went back to work under a lot of, very strict protocols.
Yeah, PAs with 6-foot yardstick stuff. And
we did all of that. And part of it, because of the pandemic, it actually put me in the position where I was able to go through prep for my episode and for other people's episodes. The person I was writing with, Jennifer Kasabian, who's now one of my best friends and writing partners, she, her and I wrote a script together for Frankie Drake, but she was pregnant at the time, and she's like, my doctors have said I should not be close to people. I can't be on set. You're going to have to be that person. So I was like, great. And it was my first opportunity to, be a writer on set. And so I learned so much over Frankie. And then when Moonshine came a-calling to, they interviewed a lot of people, I was able to tell Sherry, well, I just got off set. I've just been working. And so I went right into that show. And I think the opportunity that Pete afforded me, that he's like, yeah, be on set. Let's go. Let's see what you can do. Then kind of opened other doors for me because, as a showrunner myself, I love if a writer has had some experience going through prep and being on set, because that means I can bring them to set. They can take care of set while I'm rewriting an episode of television, or meeting with executives, or I'm in post now and working on a cut with the director. It's And I also want to like elevate people and give them the experience that I had, you know, a mentor. I've had, so as you said, so many great mentors throughout the years. I'd like to turn around and pay that back.
And the diversity of the shows, like Moonshine, it just seems like this is a show that would have been, you basically had to, like, it would be a smoke-filled room when you were working on this. It just seemed like a hippie party.
It really wasn't, though. Oh my gosh. I'm going to get a reputation.
When you watch the show, it's like, wow, you know, like it's just going everywhere. It's got it's driven by comedy. Really.
Yes, definitely.
And it was an interesting cast, right?
I really actually loved working on Moonshine. I love that show. I thought it was like so cheeky and fun, and let's face it, I was able to go out and live in Hubbard's, Nova Scotia for the summer.
Wow.
And our writer's room was in a cabin where you could look out and see the ocean. So lunchtime, it's like, let's go for a swim.
Pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome.
Pretty Canadian.
It was.
And Jennifer, the lead on that,
Jen Finnegan?
Yes, Jen. Oh my God. I did a podcast with her, and she was in bed.
Amazing.
She's very open about it. She's like, I'm spending the day in bed.
I did not know that was an option, Bill.
It's our first meeting.
Okay.
But I just thought it was a really fun talking to her. It was a lot of fun, and watching the show was fun too. Interesting cast.
Yeah. Right? We actually cast. I don't know if this is a spoiler. I'm going to say it anyways. Emma Hunter, who played Nora on Moonshine. God. You'll look forward to seeing her season 2 on our show. She was
on
Saint Pierre.
Good.
Yeah, she was amazing. Everyone loved working with her, and I did on Moonshine too. It was like when her tape came in, it was like an easy choice because Allan and I worked with her. We love her spirit and her vibe, and she's just such a cool person to be around and really lovely. Yeah. And then she knocked it out of the park with her audition. It was like, yeah, this is this character. Wow. Yes, definitely.
Wow. Yeah, she has. I mean, she does like not stand up, but a lot of really pure comedy work. And then she can do the drama as well. And I remember Dawn Ferguson at Air Force. She did a season of Air Force, or one of their New Year's Eve specials. And he just said you could see the craziness in her eyes in terms of the sketch. Like she just brought it all alive, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Robina will be right back after this short break.
Streaming January 22nd on Paramount Plus. It began on the shores of New Jersey. The calls of Jim, Tan Laundry reverberated north to Canada, where a new type of party animal resides. They move as a herd, migrating to their favorite watering holes, asserting dominance by flexing, grinding, and twerking. Coupling is quick and sometimes in hot tubs. When morning arrives, they do it all over again. Canada Shore. New original series streaming January 22nd on Paramount Plus.
And we're back with Robina Lord-Stafford.
Wow. So then, all these steps have just led to Saint Pierre. I'm jumping around here, but
that's okay.
I read at one point that, and tell me if I'm completely off track, is there a pirate in your family? Was there a...
There it was.
Right. So did you have an idea to do a film about...
Yes. I'm like, where are you getting this? This is awesome.
The internet. The interwebby. But this fascinated me. Like, is this a project that you still might return to someday?
Oh my gosh, Bill, that's the project that is the nearest and dearest to my heart. And that if one day I could do it, that I can die a happy lady. My fourth great grandfather was Sam Lord, and that's where the Lord is in my family. And he was not a nice man. Apart from being a pirate.
Yeah.
They called him a gentleman pirate because he wasn't like Jack Black Sparrow. He wasn't like sailing the high seas and like jumping on ships with swords.
Doing a Mick Jagger impression.
No, he wasn't doing that. He was, he had a plantation in Barbados that had been his father's and that he inherited when his father passed. And the situation of it, there's a place called Cobbler's Reef that's near it, and it's really rocky. And so what he would do is, as I said, not a good guy, he was a slave owner, but he would walk, like his slaves would walk up and down the coast with stairs, with lanterns on their horns, and that it would kind of appear to be boats moored in the harbor.
Wow.
So ships coming from, normally from Europe, from the UK, thought that they had reached Carlisle Bay, which is the harbor, and they would run aground. And then he would go and help them to salvage their goods.
Wow.
And then he would turn around and sell some of the goods that were salvaged on his property, allowing the people who were initially the goods were destined for were then allowed to come on the property and buy it. And of course, he took a huge percentage of it.
Doesn't this sound like an episode of Saint Pierre?
Yeah, it does.
You got to have that the Jolly Roger flag on the island there at some point. And bring
so funny.
That boat in, yeah.
But I would love to do this. It's called Long Bay, and this was my first. I wrote it as a feature film, and then I developed it into a limited series.
Oh wow!
And but it's a period piece. It's really hard to get financing to do it. Yeah. But I'm not giving up because there's lots of amazing period pieces on television now. Like when I watched Bridgerton, that really made me like reevaluate that maybe we can make this one day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not told from Sam Lord's perspective because there are books written about him, songs. You go to Barbados, he's all over the place. Yeah. But I'm telling it from the perspective of one of his slaves who would have been my fourth great grandmother. And some of it I had to make up because, of course, her story hasn't been recorded the same way his has. Right. But there's a legacy there that I would love to be able to share with the world. And when I went to Barbados, I went and sat on the property of Long Bay is the name of the Sam Lord's Castle on Long Bay. And I went and sat there, and it was like the stories just washed over me. And going through Bridgetown and like seeing some of the historical things that they still have there, and I'm like, I'm going to pull that in. Oh, George Washington stayed here? Okay, that's part of my story. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like taking things that weren't necessary, fictionalizing my family's history, basically. So, one day.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be awesome. I'd like to see that. We're at a unique time here in Canada with production and television. I mean, producing TV here has always been challenging. It's a small market. Your great fortune is working with folks like Christina who can sell to 120 different territories, and everybody gets to see your show all around the world, which is incredible.
It's pretty cool.
Do you see? Are you optimistic? Are you fearful? What is your feeling about the state of the industry right now in terms of television in Canada?
It's funny. After coming back from Content London, I came back with a lot of optimism.
Oh, great!
I also saw there was a lot of opportunities to connect with global partners, and it is maybe hard to get your show up and running if you're kind of isolated in Canada. But if you're open to working with, we saw the trailer of a show coming out of Finland, and the guy worked with someone from Japan to create this series, and it's just it looks incredible. It's right up my alley as far as a Scandi-noir type thing that incorporates a Japanese cop in Finland solving a crime.
Wow.
It could be Iceland. I'm really sorry to the Finnish and Icelandic people if I've messed up your countries.
We don't get a lot of mail from them. So.
Okay, good. But watching that, I was like, number one, it reminded me of Saint Pierre, two fish out of waters having to force together to solve a crime. But it also left me with so I could work with people from the UK or from Ireland or from France. Or, I have a series that I'm working with Jennifer Kasabian. We have two series, but one specifically is set in Southern Europe.
Wow.
And it's this is actually doable. So we can partner with an amazing Canadian production company like Shaftesbury and Christina Jennings, if you're listening, Christina, and connect with another production company in Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, wherever that's beautiful in the wintertime once we want to escape the snow a little bit in Canada.
Yes. Yeah.
And that we could actually partner and make something really special there. So I'm optimistic.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think you're right. And Canada has treaty deals with like 50 plus countries.
So many countries.
In Africa, all over the place.
Yeah.
Do you have anything officially in terms of co-production with France on Saint Pierre?
Oh, on Saint Pierre, no, we don't.
Okay.
We just kind of like Allan's production company, Hawco Productions.
Right.
We didn't really feel the need to do that co-production. Like we got permission from the Saint Pierre government. And it was great. But we will be showing in France. We have been sold to France.
Oh, fantastic.
So our show will be available.
When that starts, this 2026 maybe?
I think so. Okay. I know Josephine right now is dubbing her own voice.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
So she gets to be Arch in both languages. And,
that's great.
And it's really cool. And she sent me a video and I got to hear the person who's voicing Fitz. And it's like, it actually really works. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, it's not Allan's voice, but whoever's bringing it is like...
Well, it sure is an Allan voice.
It matches.
Yeah. But it's got to be hilarious to have this guy dubbing Allan's voice saying, no, I don't speak French.
Well, they changed it. They said, like, you know, like they've adapted it a little bit.
Okay.
So we've taken out that kind of aspect and
is hilarious.
It's been tweaked so that it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
Look forward to that. Well, this is all very fun. You got a lot of great stuff going on here. People can watch this for 12 episodes this season, Mondays on CBC, Saint Pierre. And you say you're working on another show right now?
I'm working on developing shows.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got quite the slate.
Yeah, that's fantastic. My son Dan Brio works for a production company in developing shows and things, and Bright North is a studio.
Okay.
And so I'm always talking to him about this. It just seems it's a unique time for sure, right? And CBC, of course, a home here for you, and a lot of the shows that you've worked on.
Yeah, most of my shows have been on CBC.
Right. Because they make Canadian shows, right?
They're such champions for us.
Yeah.
They really want to make something special. They love the specificity of Saint Pierre, for instance, where, you know, like he's a cop from St. John's and he's in Saint Pierre. They just, I can't be happier. Like our executives have been such great collaborators throughout this whole process that it's a joy.
Can you tease anything that's about to happen that will happen this season? Does it build towards, you can't?
Tease.
Oh, okay.
We get to know a little bit about Fitz's backstory and like learn a little bit about when he was undercover and kind of why he is the way he is now. Okay. There's a good tease about Gallagher. He's back, James Purefoy.
Oh, great.
Oh, yes, we've already seen episode 1, so I can say that. I was like, wait a second. So we get to see him getting up to some of his Gallagher-ness.
Great actor.
He's a great actor. Yeah. And, you know, in season 1, Arch learned that he was her father. And so it's just really interesting watching Arch be around Gallagher now because she knows who he is, and he's not just that white whale that she came to Saint Pierre to take down in the first place. There's like all these other emotional layers that have been added in, so it's really fun having that in the back of your head when you watch them.
Did you have that idea at the very beginning?
At the very beginning, no.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, she was there to take down Gallagher, but it was when we were in the writer's room that we were like, could he be her dad?
Oh, really?
Yes. And then that kind
That's
of just
funny.
changed everything. And then we could like jump ahead to the finale of 110 and kind of like we just started to like reverse engineer what that could mean. And
And finally, talk a bit about the food at Saint Pierre. It's authentic. They really are French chefs, and you get the baguettes are really real,
gosh.
right?
And the croissants are, you know, one of the things I learned is that in France there's a standard for croissant. So if a croissant is straight, it means it's made with pure butter and it is like official. If it's the curved croissant that we tend to see in Canada, in France, that means it's not made with 100% butter.
Oh my goodness.
Like it could have been made with oils and margarine or what have you.
Really?
So you want to have like a straight croissant to know that it has been, I mean, they take their things really, in France, it's like, this is a real croissant. Like there are laws regulating it. Same with like fashion, they have really strict laws about there's such incredible design houses in France, and so having knockoffs and contraband and illegal designer goods, like, you will get fined and you could face up to 5 years in jail.
Well, there's an episode of Saint Pierre.
We have that in one of our episodes. Absolutely. When we found this out, we're like, oh, this is absolutely in the episode.
And people are driving around on Peugeots and real French cars.
Yes, Citroën, yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I was kidding Allan about in episode 1, he did a 360.
Yeah.
And he was saying, why did you point that out? I couldn't do it. He was all, as we hear on this episode, he talked about how the stunt guy finally had to step in and pull the lever, right?
So funny.
I had some the croissant there, and there is something different about it. So, and is there actual restaurants there?
There's so many restaurants. There's some really good restaurants there. And then in one of the hotels, there's a great little restaurant there, and they bring in, there are people that live permanently in Saint Pierre, but then there's others who will come for 6 months or a year at a time from France or one of the French colonies. So there was someone there from Martinique, and then someone there from Guadeloupe, and they'll come in and they'll work because they get paid very well to come and work, because there's not enough of a population to be able to do all the work there.
Right.
And so last year at the hotel, there was a chef, and he was wonderful, Thierry, and he was from France. And so he just had a great time creating things. And, even if it wasn't on the menu, sometimes I'd say, he makes a really good hamburger. He makes his buns from scratch.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what he does, but I'm like, and I don't really eat meat, but one day I took a bite of someone's burger and I was like, I need one of those in my body right now. And so I said, can you make me one? And he's like, well, it's not on the menu. And then with a twinkle in his eye, he had it sent up to me, and I was like, this should be on the menu. And then 2 days later, his burger was on the menu. It was really funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when in Saint Pierre, ask for Thierry. And the burger is, if it's not on the menu, ask for it anyway.
Yes.
I kid Allan that, there's 5,000 people. What's the big crime wave? The croissants went stale. But there is this whole intriguing notion of sort of shipping or bringing crime into the island from illegally. People are trying to hop off that island to the States or Canada too. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a great...
Which is completely fabricated by us. Just to be clear, Saint Pierre is an incredibly safe place. When we were there, it's filming back in June of 25, the police were investigating something, and we're like, oh my gosh, what crime? And it's a double murder. And we were like, oh my gosh, what have we done? Have we created crime in Saint Pierre? And they were like, it's from 1967. It was a cold case. But I guess they thought, we're investigating stuff. Maybe they need to get on it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Have you noticed that there are people now coming to the island because of the show? That it's really boosted tourism?
Definitely. Yeah. We met a couple from Salt Spring, British Columbia. Wow. So from one island all the way, it took them 17 hours to get there.
Wow.
And they were there because of the show. As we met many people when we were there back in the summertime who had come to visit because they'd seen our show, and they were like, we want to come and visit this really cool little island that we didn't even know about.
Imagine it taking 17 hours to get there.
I know.
My son-in-law is from Cairo, and I'm going there in April, and it's an 11 or 12 hour flight, right? And that's all the way to Egypt.
Yeah, I know.
Crossing Canada.
And I think it's, coming from Salt Spring to Vancouver, Vancouver to Toronto, Toronto to St. John's to, it's all those stops that you have to wait an hour or two here. And they told us that's how long it took them to finally make it to St. Pierre.
And it's about 25 minutes to hop from St. John's.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah,
it's you ascend and then get a glass of water, and then you descend and you're there.
It's perfect. Well, Robina, pleasure to meet you, and thank you very much for all the information about season 2 of Saint Pierre, CBC, on 9 p.m.
Yes, Eastern, and 9:30 in Newfoundland.
Of course.
And Labrador.
Yeah. Although it's the half-hour difference is not true right in Saint Pierre. Don't they have a different time zone?
The time zone they're 2 hours ahead of Eastern time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's a half an hour between Saint Pierre and Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So when we're going back from Saint Pierre, we take off and land, and it seems like we've only been there for 10 minutes.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations on all your success, and thank you very much for coming all the way across town in Orangeville to talk today. I'm so delighted. I've never interviewed anybody here in Orangeville, so keep making shows so we can do this often, and look forward to that.
Absolute pleasure, Bill. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Well, thanks again to my guest, Robina Lord-Stafford. I just love saying that name, Robina Lord-Stafford, for having such a cool name and coming all the way across Orangeville to record this podcast. Don't forget to check out Season 2 of Saint Pierre, Monday nights on CBC or anytime on CBC Gem. Thanks to producer Phil Hong for making a simple Pixel phone recording sound great. I'm really not set up for these kitchen table conferences. Worked out though, I think. Thanks as always to BJ Del Conte, Paul Boudreau, and Stephen Dudley for the music that you hear on these podcast episodes. And finally, thanks to you, listener. If you like what you heard, please spread the word. I'm Bill Brio. Thanks for listening.